beautiful rain. What do you think, Bill? All right, we're going to continue talking about hips. Bill has nothing important to say, so we'll get back to him. So we talked about a little exercise, and we'll review that. And we didn't get as nerdy as I wanted to, so today we'll get a little nerdy. And I think I like Instagram Lives better because I actually got 2 questions. Post on Facebook, and just no one cares. So I'm glad. Thank you for the questions. I'll try to answer them today or go a little deeper. So we're looking at, I actually got the camera in the right direction so you can read, rebuilding Milo. It's not inverted. So he talks about, I wish he goes deeper, because I need things explained kind of dramatically. Ah! Dramatic fall of the book. Yes. All right, let's not do that. Let's not drop the book. But I need things explained elaborately, maybe not dramatically. All right, so Antiversion, we can see that this socket for the hip points a little forward. And you would think that, okay, the trochanter is going to be that direction, but it's not, because the point here is the femoral head wants to rest. So if it's pointing this way, you're most commonly going to see it going into external rotation, that direction. So I kind of drew that there very badly, just exaggerating that. Then we have the opposite over here. So the socket's kind of pointing more posteriorly towards the tailbone. We're going to see that reverse in a relaxed position, right? We have the same issue with our shoulders, and we'll talk about that. So that's going to go more internally. Now don't follow that arrow. That arrow is actually showing you're going to have more internal rotation because it's going to have more motion. So if you're checking yourself, he has all these different tests, and here's one even. So for retroversion, maybe that hip gets a little stuck when you're laying on your back. They're bringing it up higher. If you take it, into external rotation, you're going to have more hip flexion. So this will pertain to the squat exercise we're going to talk about today. And there's a bunch of other tests you can see how that relates. If she has more external rotation, she might have retroversion. But let's think about this from a chiropractic standpoint. We can kind of see here before we move on that, so here's antiversion, how it's kind of, there's jamming almost here, that part, and then it's resting there. So that femoral head is getting pushed in there. And think about it, it's resting on that socket all the time, and it's not actually being held, in a normal position. And normal is, you can see it's still, what is that, 50 degrees? It's at a 35 degrees. So it's more externally rotated if you want to think about it that way. And the retroversion is actually going to have it more anterior. It's a little more lateral than it should be. It's actually like, well, that looks perfectly lined up. And that's interesting because the foot pattern would be almost opposite of what you'd think it'd be. You think about this one internally rotated, wouldn't that make you pigeon-toed? No, because the tibia has rotation as well. So we talked about that yesterday, how that all kind of rotate. And you can have various patterns within these patterns. And then, he talks about, if you're from Bulgaria or Eastern Europe, you're going to have, more dysplasia, which is a shallow socket, and you're more patterned to one thing based on your genetics. So let's forget about genetics. Let's just think about chiropractic-wise, like how the pelvis, the ilium malaligns, and how things we're trying to correct. So a chiropractic world, it's like one side over the other gets jammed up. But you can have patterns like, let's say, both these iliums kind of move down and out, which we'll see, and we call that posterior pelvic tilt. So it's posterior, and usually there's a little external rotation where the ilium is gapping, it's moving a little bit away from the sacrum on either side. Is that going to push this more forward? Is it going to make it look like it's antiverted? Possibly, which will cause that tucking, more external rotation of the femur. Not a hard, fast rule, and we can have the opposite here. So it could be more of a forced closure idea where these are actually wrapping in, hugging the sacrum tighter, which will make you more of an anterior pelvic tilt. And I'll show these as best as I can, which would put it more laterally. It's not going to internally rotate it, it's going to be more lateral. It's good, it wants to rest on the socket. So now the head would be jamming here, the neck maybe other resting there. Either way, we want it kind of pulled equally by the muscles. And I'll show what that looks like, but hopefully that helps with the concept. Let's show you here on Phil if I can. Or not Phil, sorry, Bill. Phil. whatever your name is. What is your name? Is this the movie Hip? The hip that moves? Okay. So it isn't antiversion if the hip moves this way, and I think I used to say this is retroversion. It's ignore that if I've said that in the past. It's more based on the position the socket is facing. So if the socket's facing more here, and it might be just a malformation of this socket, what I'm trying to propose to you is it could be that this whole ilium bone is shifted. And there's not a ton of range of motion, but there are joints here. They can, this pubic symphysis can be altered. I don't even know what I was trying to say. But pubic bone could be forward on one side. That could be more posterior. So we even adjust this with chiropractic sometimes. That could be malaligned. And there's joints here as well. Sacrum could be rotated, which can cause one side over the other, or it could be, both going in one direction, which might cause a more antiverted hip, right? So let's just think more about internal rotation, external rotation now. So it wants to rest. Let's kind of see how it's butting. It's resting on that. Maybe it's getting jammed there, or maybe it's getting jammed where that metal piece there is in the front. And then the other way, kind of more retroverted hip would force this direction, or a more anterior pelvic tilt. So it's this bone has shifted anteriorly. Could be a quad dominance, pulling that forward, hamstring weakness, lats being too tight can all kind of contribute to anterior pelvic tilts, abdominal weakness, whereas posterior pelvic tilt would be maybe glute dominance, where it's tucking the pelvis, even to the point where the pelvis starts shifting forward, because remember, this wants to go here. And then your pubic symphysis, as it is in Bill here, he's pretty, if you draw a line, his center of gravity is pretty much right through his pubic symphysis. That's where it should be. So if you are very posterior pelvic tilt and you got a bit of a sway back going on, see how much we can lean him back. You can kind of see a little bit there. That center of gravity shifts more to the sacroiliac joint, more here, instead of a couple, like an inch forward, 2 inches forward, where it should be under the pubic symphysis. And that has a lot to do with external rotation. So maybe both hips are externally rotated, or maybe one hip is more externally rotated than the other. Same problem, but maybe it's more lateral than it should be. Like, it shouldn't be like this. It should be kind of here. It's just when it's like 35 degrees, like the book said. Too much. And then that could also be things like the piriformis, which run through here, or obturator internus, which runs through the lesser sciatic notch, glute medius, because it's not just this or this. It's usually, it's doing that number, right? And you would see how the sacrum would then rotate towards it, since those muscles are attaching on the inside. It's probably gonna not do that, but it's gonna do that motion to make that distance shorter. And usually we'll see gapping, that more, it's forcing that more antiverted position of the ilium. Probably some inflammation here. Feel like a bruised apple. I love the sound of the rain here. I should do all videos in the rain. Hopefully you can hear me well. Tight piriformis. And where it gets tricky is because something will feel tight here, and it might be taut, it might be overstretched, because on that other side, like, oh yeah, all the pain is here. That must be where it's tight. Remember, it could be overstretched. And usually it's the overstretched piriformis I notice. It's pinching on the sciatic nerve, which also runs through here as well, before it branches, right? So it branches, and it comes together, and then it rebranches. Same with our brachial plexus. It starts from the spine, so we can get sciatica from the spine, or it could be just irritation of these muscles, just the muscles are angry, or the muscles can directly press on the nerve. Sometimes we'll have sciatica, and it could be just a kind of injured, irritated muscle pattern, which will go down the leg as well. As most sciatica, it should go to the foot. You should be feeling something in the foot. But if it's not, it's just kind of stopping at the knee. It might just be these big muscle chains, these slings. So like the lat forms into the thoracolumbar fascia, covers the sacrum, and then we have our glute connected to that. We have our sacrotuberous connected to that, forming into the hamstring, which creates one big sling, this band that holds like a big X. You know, it should work with the other side. But if those two slings are really dominant, the posterior oblique slings are to work against the anterior oblique slings, which include the abdominals and transverse abdominis and the obliques, and I might even say our psoas and iliacus to some point. So those can be overpowered by a posterior dominance, or one side over the other could overpower the other side. And that's when we get rotational imbalances, like this hip is more turned out, or this hip is more turned in compared to the other one, and this one's more posterior pelvic tilt to that side, the sacrum's more rotated one way. And when that happens, your foundation's off, the rest of the spine twists, and you could end up looking like Bill here with his head twisted to one side. Right? Or it can start in the neck. A lot of chiropractors believe everything starts in the neck, so let's say Bill's head really is that twisted. He can't walk like that, so the rest of his spine would have to twist. His body would have to twist to the right to kind of make him appear that he is walking in a straight line. You know, so most people, you close their eyes, you put them in a field, they'll walk in a circle, one direction or the other. All right, so let's go over some exercises now that I've just completely confused everybody. And we'll do the squat, but let's quickly go over what we went over yesterday. Can I flip this camera? Oh, look at that. Hey, it's me, Dr. Klein. Hanging out in the rain, downtown by myself, and I had too much caffeine, and I was talking about your hips and how they're rotated. So, I tried to trick you yesterday I don't think I tricked you properly. When you're first standing and you go down to a kneeling position, you might favor the stronger side. So just right there might tell you which side's imbalanced. And it might not be. Most people do have a rotational balance, like one side's more twisted than the other. I was thinking about how I wash dishes, and I'll be standing there. I know I'm kneeling right now, but I'll notice I'll rest this left side more forward. So as that comes more forward, that hip turns more externally rotated, shows me that I have a dominance that direction. It also shows that my sacrum is forward on the left side. It's twisting forward. And I'm compressed in this position. Even if I'm just going forward, it's still a compressed position. And both hips are now turning back. So it doesn't have to be, maybe you favor one side over the other, you're always leaning in one direction, you're resting on one hip. Sometimes people get injured and their patterns change, and then they start shifting to the other side. It can cause twisting into the knees, into the hips, or maybe it's just both, or maybe you're very anterior pelvic tilt. I was this way for a long time. I was there, very tilted that way, and then I did this with my head, which really compresses my spine, really makes my breathing force the abdominal wall. And this is getting very short, and that thoracolumbar fascia in the back is shrinking, shortening, and it's compressing the spine, compressing the nerve roots, and it's bad for the hips. Very bad. So maybe you've had a little practice there going left to right. One little trick I like to do, you can do this without your kettlebell, is get up into a standing position, and back up a little bit, and just reach with one arm, reach the other leg back. So try not to hit the wall here. But this way, instead of like just dropping straight down, which I already tucked a little bit, and I felt compressed, here I'm reaching, getting long, I'm going back as far as I can with that leg, then putting that foot down, then dropping the knee. And that should put you in a better position. You should feel decompressed there. Instead of just starting, getting the weight, and then you're like, and you can't get yourself out of the compressed position. So if you want to do that with the weight, it'll look like almost like a single leg deadlift, or a Romanian deadlift they call it. You're just not going all the way. Normal Romanian deadlift, you'll take it, and me with my terrible balance, trying to aim for the heel, you're going back down like that. We're just not going that far. So what we'll try to do, see I'm falling over already. Try to do is, I'm gonna reach with the other hand now. Just reach back, maybe about here. Then I'll drop that knee down. The weight should be just above the ground. So here you can take that swing, bring it on up into the rack position. I think last time we had it, no, we did have it in this hand because we're pushing across the body and we're twisting. So I can tell right now this is my stronger side. So I shouldn't be doing it on this side anyways, but for demonstration purposes, I will do it. So here, just breathing, So my toes are tucked towards my face, and I'm pushing with those toes. I'm pushing with the knee that's down, and this front heel, I'm gripping the ground, kind of pulling the ground behind me. All those 3 points are pushing up against this kettlebell. Right there, that's kind of shaky. That's using my hips. So if I was more turned out on the right, I'd want to do it this way. If I was more turned out on the left, I want to do the opposite side. But just knowing which side doesn't matter, because you have to have the right mechanics. So we'll run through that one more time with my weaker side. Hopefully I don't fall over and look like a fool. So don't really even have to balance on one leg, just put more weight on there. I'm just reaching with this hand, reaching back, reaching back, reaching back. Put that other foot down. Yeah, the goal is just go as far as you can and then down. You don't have to do a full Romanian deadlift there, single leg, because they're a little tough. Then I'm gonna swing this weight up, just between the legs. You're not compressing, you still got your legs in a great position. Swing that up. And now I'm not dumping that hip forward like it wants to. I'm pulling it back to support the weight. So otherwise I can feel it's resting and it's uncomfortable. So I'm pushing all 3 contact points, back foot, knee, forward leg, into the ground. You should feel that working here. Maybe more than the other side, maybe less, depending on what your balance is. Maybe it's hard on both sides. And once you get good at that, that's when you can start pressing and rotate a little across the body. So it's an anti-rotation exercise. What my body wants to do is that. Let me show you without the weight. My body wants to just dump, right? I don't really feel any stretch. If I really get active and the weight helps me get active, I feel that stretch, and then I'm pressing into it. I'm not letting this rotate. That's where the anti-rotation comes from. I'm forcing this back as I drive, and that's when you'll work that whole sling. Very tough. And I feel the weight teaches me to do that, teaches others to do that. Might not be for you, might be too hard, might be too heavy. Find a lighter weight. Let's go over the squat really quick and we'll finish with that. So me, you might even notice it, and I'm on uneven territory here, but if I squat just straight down, I can feel I'll exaggerate, I go a little bit left. I'm just naturally comfortable over there. That just wants to be there. So I found if I hold the weight in the opposite hand, let's pick up that weight with good integrity, and we'll swing it up here in that same rack position. Now when I come down, I feel it in the right more. A little more shifted. And the weight kind of helps hold me in the squat position. And you're just breathing. It's okay to rest here. Just make sure your feet are gripped into the ground well. And just rest. And you can do this for a good minute, 2 minutes. I made 3 minutes the other day. It was terrible. But the weight actually kind of holds you down there a little deeper. This hurts your knees, this hurts your back. Don't do it. Maybe start lower. Some people do better with like the weight here. And you're just kind of, okay, I'm here, I'm holding, and I'll get lower and lower as I go. Or maybe the weight behind your back, try that, see if that evens you out good. But we can all squat. We can all squat. It just takes practice. Breathing when you're here, maybe come into a hinge a little bit, give yourself a break, reset the feet, come back down. I like watching myself on camera because I know I'm not doing this, right? So I'm trying to even that out as best as I can. And then I feel it differently in the hips. Where if I wasn't watching or I wasn't conscious of all the things I taught you, I might naturally be loading one side over the other. It's going to create imbalance, twisting the spine. So it might be that your spine is just out of line and you actually need to come see the chiropractor. So come see me at the Fix and we will fix you. That's what we do. Get you in line, give you the right education, right exercises. We'll tell you what pattern you are. And guys, I know it's rough right now. I'm very blessed.
Because even though I'm scared because not a lot of money's coming in right now, I'm like, I need patience, I need patience. I've just been very blessed. I was able to work through the pandemic. I sold my house at a great time. If you're having any money trouble at all, we'll work it out. We'll make it work. I'd rather you, if you're in pain, get in. You could pay me by writing a review, or we could do a live video of your adjustment. It'd be awesome. That'd really help me. You could just tell a friend about me. Hand out one of my cards. That's how you can pay me. All right, because even that is worth a lot to me. So we'll work it out. If you're in pain, you're like, oh man, I'd love to get in, but it's expensive. I don't have the time. You know, because you're taking off work probably to come in here. I try to have some Sunday hours, but I know it's rough. So if you can, get in and just call me. We'll work it out. Because on the schedule online, booking it, it's going to charge you. So give me a call. We'll make it work. Make it work. Get you out of pain. Because if you're in pain, then you're having to get surgery, then you're taking time off work, or you're just in pain, you're just able to waiting to get better. That's all time that you're not working. That's stealing money from you as well. So all this is prevent. Not just surgery, but pain as well, arthritis, weakness, nerve pain, other things happening. Let's get you stable, and it's going to save you money in the long run. My father always says it's health assurance instead of insurance. You know, just wait until you're in pain, wait until you're broken. Take charge now while you feel better, while you're feeling half decent. All right, maybe you're not feeling half decent. Definitely get in. Right, don't wait till it gets worse. If you're feeling good, you're like, I just want to get checked. Same thing. Give me a call. We'll get you in. All right, guys, take care.